Okay guys, we're going to start painting up Bowsette. Now normally I always do skin tone first. It's easier for me to do skin tone first than the outfit, than anything that's on top of the outfits or the skin, like these wristbands and stuff. And then maybe if the character has a belt buckle or a belt around their waist, you know, you kind of do that last. If there's any add-ons like pouches, you do those last and you glue them on, or if they're already on, you do them last. It's kind of like I like to work from the base of the model forward. Now I know some people like to do the outfits first and then the skin tone after. It's all a matter of preference. So this is kind of just how I like to work. But because I'm still tweaking this up a little bit and I haven't had a chance to fine tune much of it because I've been just busy with the studio redo and commissions, that I'm just kind of trying to get back onto this. So today while I'm doing some paint work, I figure it would be a good chance at least to get the shell going. So the shell should be fairly easy. It's a matter of a nice bright green, work out some blends and washes in there to kind of get all those details out, and probably could pop a little bit more, let it dry up, and then what I could do is I can mask off the green areas and I could do the white parts of the spikes with an airbrush, because painting them on, you'll see the brush stroke. So I got to kind of mask all that off and make them nice and smooth, seal it up. And then tomorrow what I could do is I could come back, I could paint out the, I guess they're like orangey or brown rings around the spikes. I could do those up with a paintbrush because it's fairly easy, just a quick, you know, circle around them. And then once that's all pretty much ready to go, I can mask off the white part and get the shell done. So at least I could get that out of the way, and then I could just focus on the figure after that. Now as far as the tail goes, there's a couple options. One, something like that, if it was closer to the skin tone, I would hold off until I do the skin, then I could kind of do the tail to make sure the colors are correct. But once I get the shell done, I'll see if I need to jump onto the tail. But as far as the tail goes, I need to hit the fabric store this week because I got an idea of how to add a texture to the tail without making crazy, you know, sitting there with the paintbrush and painting all this cool texture stuff. So I could kind of make it look a little scaly, but we'll see how it works. I have another item in a box of tools that might work too, but when we get to that, we get to that. But for right now, we're going to focus on the shell, get that going, and then hopefully once that's pretty much done, she'll be fine-tuned and I can start working out the skin tone. Alright, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do a little bit of shading around the edge of the shell with some transparent leather tan, because I don't want to just throw any black or painted gray onto it because it's supposed to be bright. And then what I'll do is I'll go with my paintbrush and I'll try to do some washing in with the lines, darken those up a little bit. And then if I do a little bit of overspraying, what I could do is I could do some dry brushing on there to bring out some of the texture a little bit. It's going to be a little bit difficult on because I got all those spikes there, but we'll see how it works out. I don't want to just be pure green and then walk away from it. I want to bring some life to it a little bit more because the figure's going to have a lot more detail, so we want to make sure the shell and tail have some detail too. Okay, so as of right now, I went in the garage and I used Tester's dull coat lacquer through the can, and I sprayed it down. Now, it took away some of the shine, but it's still there. What I'm going to do is that pretty much just seals a lot of the powder stuff in there, really gets it sealed. I'm probably going to do a little bit more of this line work with some of the transparency just to bring out the lines a little bit more. And then I'm going to let it set up for a while, and then I'll come back later and I'll mask around these pieces and do the spikes. At the very end of this, I don't want it to be this shiny. It's just way too shiny and it looks very wet. So I'm going to do either a pure matte varnish through Vallejo Mecha, or I could do a satin varnish. Or sometimes if I want sort of like flat, but not too flat and boring, I might mix up the two together. Sort of it's like matte, and then it goes satin, and then they have a gloss. But the matte really dulls stuff down. But the only problem is I don't like using the varnish until it's pretty much done, because if you have to paint over it, sometimes this stuff creates a little bit of a bleeding, which is very subtle, but I don't like what it does. So I'm just going to keep going the way it is, and then at the end I can dull this down and make it look a little bit better. Plus it helps seal it and all that stuff. So give this about like an hour or so, come back, we can mask off all the spikes, we could do the white on them. Maybe what I might do is add just a little bit of like transparencies around the bottom of the spikes to give it like a little bit of a bone look, not much, maybe just a little, just to make it pop a little bit, just like I'm doing with the shell. And then that should be set up for the night, and then we could come back tomorrow, do all the rings, we could do the white around there, and then it should be ready to go. Alright, so you can pretty much see where I'm at with this. The white on the shell is where I want it to be, but I think it's a little too bright. I think it just needs to be dulled down just a little bit. So some of this transparency leather tan that I used on some of the spikes up there, I'm just going to hit it in certain areas around there just to kind of break up the whiteness a little bit, but not much, because a lot of the artwork I'm looking online, the spikes are kind of like an off-white, but the shell is sort of more pure white, but it had some shading, so I kind of want to just toy with it a little bit in some areas. And then once that's done, I'm going to let it cure up for about an hour or two, let it really dry, probably hit it with the blow dryer while I'm doing the transparency leather tan, and just kind of like work it out a little bit more. And then later today, I'm going to Dupli-Color clear top coat, seal it. I really want to seal like mostly the spikes and around the shell, only because handling it, you know, the glue it onto the statue. If you want to pick her up and you want to place her around the statue after everything's done, you really need to kind of seal these acrylics a little bit more than just kind of like Tester's dull coat and stuff, just to be on the safe side. And then once it's kind of top coated and it's clear, it's going to be very, very glossy though. So then I'll go on with the Mecha Varnish matte and really dull it back down and make it nice and flat. So that's kind of where we're at. So I'm just going to kind of bring the yellow into the shell white areas a little bit more. Not much, just a little bit. And then we'll seal it up, and that's pretty much the shell. And then we can start going on to all the other parts. Alright, so the shell's pretty much done. So I gloss coated it, I let it dry it up, and then I flat coated it so it's doesn't have that shine, but it feels a little bit more of a bony shell now. And that's where we're at. So we'll let this pretty much cure up for the day. We won't touch it anymore, and we'll get working on the tail. Okay, I want to start working on the tail today too. I just want to get this going. I thought a lot about the skin tone while I was doing the shell. And I'm going to go more of a bronze skin. It's not going to be like a deep dark bronze like some of the drawings I've seen where it's almost like a burnt umber. I don't want to go that route. And I don't want to make her super bright skin like, you know, a comic book type character. Because I've seen a lot of drawings where she's very pale almost. I want to go more of bronze. It's going to be like a middle grade. So there's going to be some like, you know, good shading on her. But she's not going to have like really too crazy highlight. It's going to be a little bit more darker. But like the bronze, so like almost like this. It's Garage Kids Colors makes a bronze skin tone, so we're going to be kind of going like that as light with shading, so that's going to be like the main color. But the tail, a lot of the drawings I've seen is kind of like a raw sienna tail with some of like the skin tone almost color underneath of it, so that's kind of what I want to do. I want to have this more of like a throwback to Bowser, where this is a little bit different than the skin tone, just having some fun with it. So I got raw siennas here for raw sienna hues for the top of the tail, and then we got some tan and the burnt umber for the underneath of it, and then I got some mahogany if I want to add any kind of shading anywhere. Now the thing is, I want to make it a little bit darker as my main paint up, and then we're going to spray a little bit of a highlight color at the end of it. Now the idea is, I have this tubing here, And this tubing is for like wires, you know, like if you make an arcade stick. I made a lot of Street Fighter arcade sticks back when Street Fighter 4 came out, because I'm a huge Street Fighter fan. So in my arcade sticks, this is kind of like that wiring for computers and stuff. So what I did is I cut it, and I figure if I wrap it around the tail, I can add a texture. So what I'll have to do is see if I can get this around the top of the tail, because I'm not really doing, I don't want to do any of the texture on the bottom. It's more like the top to give it like a scaling effect. And what I'll have to do is sort of like cut out where the bones are sticking out and see if this goes on. I'm going to try this today and see if this works. If this sort of works the way I want it to, then I won't have to go to the fabric store. But if it doesn't work, I'm going to go to the fabric store and I'll find some kind of fabric that's like this, like for women's leggings, but for like little anime kits that you put up the leggings on, if they have stockings and stuff. I'll see if I can find some fabric like that where I could wrap it around here at the tail and I could spray it down, and it gives it like a quick like scaling stuff without going crazy scaling. So it's kind of like experimenting while I'm doing it. Since it's a small item too, I could get away with it. If it was like a large item and you had to do a huge area, then it's kind of more difficult. But we'll see how this works out. So for now, we're going to work out the base colors. We'll get some just colors on there. We'll see if the texture works. If it works, and we can finish up the bone and go from there. And then start working on the figure once she's ready to go. Okay, so I tried utilizing this stuff and it just wasn't going around it. It's just too plasticky. It doesn't really have enough give to go around the piece, and it wasn't lining up. Plus it was starting to scratch paint, so I figured that was a lost cause. So I was going to go to the fabric store, but then I remembered in my box of parts I had old fabric for doing leggings and stockings for anime kits I bought back in the day. And I thought I threw them away, but I actually didn't. I actually have them in here, so I figured this is exactly what I wanted to do. So I wrapped it around the tail, and now what we're going to do is we're going to do some slow misting on it and just give it like sort of a texture. It's not perfect. I try to line it up as best as I can because we're having such a curve. It's not really going there, and of course this stuff bunches up in there. But I think it'll look fine. I think it's just a light texture, just kind of giving it in some areas around here, especially around there. It should maybe just make it pop a little bit more. So it's an experiment. We'll see how it looks. Worst case scenario, if it doesn't, then we just paint right back over it. Okay, so you can actually see what I was trying to do. Hopefully it shows in the camera. I got this scaling effect and stuff, so that's exactly where I wanted it to go. But the problem is the color's a little bit not what I wanted, and two, I messed up in some areas. So what I need to do is really sit down, take my time, and get the fabric around the tail as tight as possible and make sure all areas are taut. Even if I have to maybe use some hot glue around the bottom of it, use more tape, maybe even some sewing needles just to kind of sew it around the item too. Whatever I got to do to kind of really get it around, I'm going to have to, and take my time. Plus the color's a little off. It's too lizard looking compared to what I wanted Bowser to look like, so I got to kind of change up the color. So I'm going to go back, I'm going to blend it back out, I'm going to let it dry out for like a couple hours, and I'll come back later tonight and do it because we're throwing too much paint on it right now and I don't want to mess it all up. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm going with the tail. I'm really enjoying it. I like the look it's getting, and it's definitely blending in pretty well. So I'm going to blend this all back out. We'll come back later tonight once I really have it around the tail exactly how I want it. Okay, so what I did is I spent about 20 minutes or so, and I did some sewing work of this underneath of it. So you can kind of see that it's a crappy job of sewing under there, but that's okay because now it's all around the piece and it's really good. So it was a little tricky. What I had to do was sort of like start here, cut a little piece there, sew this around at that part, and then bring it up, sew it up, and then cut that piece, and then kind of keep going around so this way everything was flush. Because if I just wrapped it around and I sewed it and I didn't cut the notches out for the bones, it probably would have like really messed up. So it's a little bit like taunt under here, but that's as best as I could get it. I was a little bit concerned about over here, but after I tightened it up around the edges, it went down pretty well. So yeah, I can sew to a point, you know, messy stuff like that, you know, buttons on jeans, ripped jeans, stuff like that I can sew, but trying to do some really good sewing work for like a statue with a cape, I can't really go that far. I would have to practice and get the equipment, but stuff like this is pretty easy. But this is a good experiment too. I got a better understanding if I ever have to do an anime kit down the line that's got like fishnet leggings, I would be able to set it up like this. It'd be a little tricky. I would have to do some more research, but at least I have a better understanding on how to get it on there and how, you know, like this stuff, when you pull it in certain directions, it really messes up others, so you'd have to kind of tweak it. So we're going to go over to the airbrush booth now, and we're going to do a nice light color going around it, since I did a really dark mahogany there. So I'll try to find like a nice good yellow paint mixture that looks like Bowser on the screen, and sort of do that for the tail. Alright, so I popped off the fabric, and it worked out pretty good. We got a scaling effect going on it. It might be hard to see in the camera, but it's there. Now the top of it was a little bit tricky, only because the fabric would not hit it no matter how much I pushed it down. So I kind of had to blend off a little bit up there, so it's kind of like flatter. But I think that's okay. I think that kind of works. I think once I add on the bones and everything, it should all come together. If I feel that these scales are too much, I could kind of dull them down, but I think for now, we'll kind of just let them sit until I can get the skin tone going and start putting it on together. Then if I need to change anything, I can. So at least I'm in a good position right now. So like I said, I'll do the bones now, get them over and done with, and then hopefully once we get the skin on the outfit, then we can attach this to it and we can see if it really needs to change or if it's actually working with the skin tone in the outfit. So, you know, it's kind of one of those things. Let's try it now, add it on layer, and then see if we need to tweak or do anything to it. Okay, we're going to start painting up the bones. So I have this stuff called H-Bone from Garage Kit, so that's going to be the base color. We got transparency leather tan, we got transparent paint gray, and then we got some golden yellow. Just maybe if I need to mix some stuff up, make stuff brighter. If I need to grab any white, I can, but I really don't want to make this too bright. I want to make it look more like bony, but we'll see how things work out. And like I said, we're just going to see how this looks at the end with the item if I need to change anything. But I think the more I look at it and some of the colors I'm thinking about using for the skin, it might work out pretty good. I think with these solid parts that are up here, I was looking at some artwork and people do like some circle stuff. It's like kind of like a birthmark type stuff. So I'm thinking maybe what I'll do is I'll add those onto it as well. So it kind of makes it all kind of broken up in a kind of a cool looking tail. So sometimes when you do stuff like this, if you have a mistake or something you didn't plan for, you can think about it and you can actually make it work for the better. So that's kind of where I'm at this. But let's get these bones going and then we'll get a better idea on how it all looks. Okay, so you can see the texture. So we have it flat underneath. Then we come up here and we have the scaling, and then up top I had to kind of blend it back out because I just couldn't get it. And then I added those like little dimples on there. So like, you know, that's like possible like bone areas could come out, I guess, too. So that's just kind of what I came up with. So I think it should work out pretty cool. So we're going to let this pretty much cure up for the night. I'm not going to seal it, not going to do anything to it. So we have to kind of get back onto the skin tone next. So once the item is ready for skin, we can focus on that. And then we can add these items to it when we have the skin on and see how things are looking. And then we could do the outfit. And then maybe down the line, like I said, the tail might change. Or we might leave it because I kind of like it the way it is now. It kind of feels pretty cool. So that's where we're at. Okay, so it's time to start working on the skin tone for Bowsette. Now, what I like to normally do is whenever I work skin tones is do a base coat of Garage Kit Flesh first. This helps me see if there's any errors I might have missed. There could be some scratches or some areas I just didn't sand down because, you know, working with the primer so much, you think it's smooth, it looks smooth in the light, you know, and outside and whatever. But when you start putting on some colors, you start seeing some errors like maybe deep scratches or anything like that. And the reason why I like the Garage Kit Flesh Tones is it comes out fairly chalky, but it's not the point where it comes out like rubbery like Createx paints, where like if you spray that it takes like a couple weeks and you gotta heat it to dry it up, then you could maybe sand it down. Garage Kit Flesh Tones is goes on, it dries fairly fast, and you could kind of sand it and smooth some stuff out. But the problem is it's not durable, so you got to kind of seal it with some car paint. But you know, it's either or with some of these paints, and this is kind of how I like to work. Now, I don't have any formula for skin tones. I just kind of work the item until I get it to where I want it. One of my elective professors in art school was basically, you know, I learned more from him one semester than the other professors in the college. Basically, you just keep working the item till you get where you want it. You start slapping down colors, and sometimes one color is just not working, and then you grab another color, and that's the one you were looking for. So you just gotta kind of toy with it. But the main goal is we're going to use this as a base coat. What I'm going to do is probably mix up some of this P3 formula flesh with some of these other paints into an empty bottle. Get a basic color down, because once it's all smooth out and ready, we'll put the base color down. And then I have bronze flesh, I have raw sienna, burnt sienna, some gold toner, some P3 flesh wash, and it's kind of, we're going to do the mix. The idea is the highlights on her are going to be kind of like the brighter highlights, the bronzy, but not dark bronze. Because a lot of the artwork I'm looking on, she's got a very pale skin. A lot of these artists have drawn with her. And there's some artists that have a really, really bronze, dark skin. So we kind of want to find the middle ground where the highlights are kind of like the bright, and the darker areas are going to be like the really darker bronze, like the burnt siennas and the this colors and stuff like that. So we just got to kind of work it. So we don't have much flesh tone because it's just the upper body and these parts of the legs. So like a lot of other items I work on, usually it's just an outfit, and then you have a lot of legs that you would see, like, you know, like Wonder Woman and stuff like that. So this is kind of like a Wonder Woman outfit almost, but the leg boots and stuff come up higher. So we just have these parts of the legs and the upper body and the heads and the hands and arms. So that's pretty much all the skin tones. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to do the Garage Kit Flesh Tone on it. We're going to get a base coat on it. I'm going to see if there's any errors or anything, and then we'll come back when we're ready to start doing a base color that I mixed up and start working out the skin tone. So it shouldn't take too long. Usually with something like this will take a couple hours. Then I usually let the stuff dry, I seal it up, and then I can dull it down like the next day. But I don't want to rush it either, because the more you try and rush it, trying to get it done, you can run into errors and stuff. You want to make sure your paint's cure and everything's set up too. So once I get all this set up, we'll be back and we'll start getting all the skin done. Okay, so I did all my prep work. I did my base coat. I found a couple errors here and there. I sanded down, I patched up. There's one more error I just need to kind of sand that I saw, but it's not the skin, it's something on the bracer. So I mixed up my paint. It's kind of like a bronze base color. May be hard to see in the camera, but for me in person, I can see it's kind of like a bronze, because like I said, I'm looking at all the artwork and I'm trying to kind of find that middle ground. So once I start adding the shading into it, it'll start coming together a little bit more. It'll add a little bit more life to her. And at any point, if I feel that it's just too light and maybe I want to darken it, I can mist some of this P3 flesh wash over the item. Then I also have a couple other colors here. I got transparent leather tan, bright flesh, sepia, pale flesh. So I got a lot of transparencies. I can kind of play with it and add colors and stuff. But as of right now, I listed all the colors, and I'm just going to start blending and going through it. It's really kind of hard to explain. If I need to stop at any time, I will, and kind of just give you guys an idea what's going on. But what I like to do now is sort of start hitting the shadow areas. What I'll do is I'll mix up some of the base color that in this bottle here, and then I'll mix up some of this burnt sienna in with that bottle, and I'll use this as like a dark tone. So what I'll start doing is I'll do some heavy shading in areas, and then I start blending it back down. Because I like to see how I hit the item with the airbrush, because if you try to start throwing details in right away, sometimes you'll see like misting happen in other areas. So like if you're hitting this part of the leg, some of the paint might actually start misting this way and cause a problem, or underneath the arm it might cause a misting. So it's kind of like I hit it with the dark areas, I see how the paint's falling, and that gives me a better idea of how to control the airbrush and hit certain areas. So it's just a matter of playing with it. So we're going to go with the dark tones, then we'll start dulling it down, and then if I need to explain anything, we'll come back. Okay, so I did my base coat. Right now I'm doing a little bit of testing. The skin was a little too, I guess you could say more realistic. It wasn't kind of like that yellowish anime look a little. So what I'm doing is, I have this badger flesh. This stuff is kind of more of an anime look to it. It's got more of like an orangey yellow look. So I'm kind of using this a little bit more. I was doing some misting on it, seeing what's going on. So then what I did is I mixed up some of that with some of this raw sienna into this bottle that I mixed up before. So what I'm doing is just kind of testing out some stuff, trying to get like a little bit more of that bronze look. Before it was kind of more like a Wonder Woman flesh tone. I'm trying to get more of a anime look. Since I really don't paint a lot of anime, it's kind of a little bit different. So right now I'm just kind of getting a little bit more of that yellowish bronze look to it. Yeah, it's getting there a little bit more. I'm just going to have to maybe hit a little bit more of a, gotta see, maybe a little bit more of a yellow in here, but I don't want to do a bright yellow. Let's try some, let's see, we got pale flesh, which is kind of more of an orangey look to it. So we'll put some more pale flesh in there. And then we have some in this gold toner. So we'll throw some more gold toner in here. And this is just kind of like the process I keep going whenever I try to mix up a color. I don't try to just mix up the color off the item. I try to mix it while I'm working on the item. And then maybe what I'll do is I'll get that perfect color. Whereas trying to mix it on, like, you know, like next to a computer screen or something, or a magazine, it just, you still got to get all the other colors mixed up with it. So it's sort of getting there. This one might be, where we want it. Always got to get the paint out of the cup too, because you'll still be pushing the over paint. Let's see how this color looks now. Seems like that has a little bit more into it. Almost there. I think we still got to get some kind of a more of a yellowish bronze. So let's see what other colors we can get. Alright, let me try to find, maybe this color. We got a golden yellow. Golden yellow is very potent, but I think maybe that might hit it to where we need it. So like I say, you're just going to keep mixing and mixing and mixing until I find the color. So let me go do this off camera a little bit more. It might take a little while, and then we could come back maybe when I find the perfect color. Okay, so it took a little bit, but I mixed up another bottle. I think I got where I wanted to. This one became a little too yellow, but I can actually use this for some misting in some areas. I'm going to probably mix up some of this burnt sienna hue that I have in with it, because this is kind of like a little bit more of a darker hue compared to the burnt sienna from Garage Kits. I think that'll probably give me a little bit more of the darker areas that I want. And then I'm just going to keep playing with it again. It took, like I said, it takes a little while to find that color you want, but right over here I can see with the legs as I'm getting it, it's kind of got that bronzy yellow look to it. It's not too yellow, but it's not too flesh looking. It's kind of more of that mid-tone of a lot of the artwork I'm seeing. So I think I pretty much got it to where I was looking at it. Plus, if we bring the tail next to it, which I have over here, kind of get a little bit of an idea of like what the tail's looking. So the tail might be a little too yellowish, so I might have to kind of do some misting on this to kind of bring it down to like a brown. But we'll see how that works out. So it's good to have the items next to me so I can see what's going on. But yeah, so I think I got it to where I want it. I think that's a good middle grade color. So now when I start adding all the shadows again, I can see what's going on. Okay, so I've been just blending and blending and blending, just mixing colors here and there. We still got a lot more to go. At one point, I was starting to kind of lose track of the colors of the arms and hands not being on the statue. The way I work, I need to have the stuff on the statue so I can actually see how things are looking. I don't really work well in parts and then trying to put the pieces together, because sometimes if you forget to paint an item or it's on the side, like I was doing with this one hand here, completely forgot about it. I had to kind of blend it back into it and everything. So that's just kind of the way I work. So what I'm going to do right now is I want to kind of pop out a little bit more highlights. So I have a semi-transparent Garage Kit Flesh. It's just kind of going to pop out some highlight areas on top of the chest, the shoulders, some of the face, the hands, a little bit of the legs here and there, just to pop it out. But right now we got that kind of bronze look to her. She's not really super bright flesh, but she's not like, you know, that dark colors that some people have drawn her. So it's kind of we're in that mix. And I think with the highlights, we'll make her pop just a little bit more, which I need. And then we kind of just I'm gonna use Tester's Dull Coat to kind of like seal it up, blend it together, get all the colors going, and then from there I'll see if I need to do anything else. I'm definitely going to have to hit it with some of the pastel women's makeup stuff, just to kind of get in the areas that I can't really get to and just kind of work it out. But yeah, I think we're getting there slowly. It's a little bit tricky, but it's a good thing it's a sunny day too, so I got the sun coming in and really helping to see some of the lighting. Alright, so we hit some highlight areas, and I think at this point what I like to do is take it off the airbrush booth and sort of try to get into this a little bit more detailing areas with some transparencies, only because it's easier to sit down and really get in close. Really don't have to worry about the airbrush booth being on, because I don't really spray very heavy. It's very, very light stuff, and I'm just going to kind of go in there and do stuff. I'll do this off camera only because I just got to get in close and I really can't have the camera in the way, but we're definitely getting that bronzy look to her, like some of the artwork, and just kind of want to bring out some areas here and there. It's going to be like transparency pale flesh, probably some of the P3 transparency flesh, just in some areas, and then hopefully we'll see how it looks after that. Okay, next step is we're going to add a little bit of powder. You know, you can use charcoal if you want to scrape charcoal sticks down. I don't like doing that. I just use women's makeup. It's already grounded up and it works out better. So what I'm going to do is hit it with a couple areas, you know, like take some of the blush and kind of work in here, because it's kind of hard to get in there with the airbrush anyway, but if you kind of bring it out a little bit, you make it pop a little bit more. So you can do stuff like that. So I'm going to kind of go over it, hit a couple areas, work on the face a little bit, you know, probably use some of the other pastels, probably some highlight areas too, and just kind of work it out a little bit more and try to bring up some areas that maybe I couldn't get with the airbrush. Okay, so what I did is I did a little bit more detailing off camera with some of the pastels, again in some areas, especially around the face and head around there, some of the areas around the arms. Then what I did is I came back to the airbrush booth, I did a little bit more detailing here and there, hit some areas that I kind of sort of missed where I had to kind of turn it upside down. So I pretty much got it to where I needed to be. Now I realized too at one point it was a little too bright. It wasn't really like that bronze look I was going for, so what I did is I used some P3 Flesh Wash, and I sort of kind of went around her again, and I gave her more of that bronze look, so I kind of dulled it back down a little bit so it's not too fleshy and bright, and this is kind of that middle grade where I wanted it to be. It's not those dark Bowsette drawings, or it's not the anime ones where she's really bright. I kind of follow that middle ground, so it's kind of like that orangey browns where I wanted it to be. Now, what I did is I put the shell and tail on the back of her, just to kind of see where I was at, to kind of see like the, you know, how the skin looks to the shell, and it's kind of where I wanted it to be. I really feel that this skin is perfect against the white and stuff. That's kind of like what I envisioned, so I think we're looking pretty good. The tail was way too orangey, I mean too yellow. It was way too yellow. I was looking at some of the artwork online, and most of the tails that people draw are kind of like more of a mustard, brownish red colors, where I had it almost like the Bowser from the video game, which was very, very yellowishy. So I didn't want to go that route. So I dulled that down with some of the P3 Flesh Wash again, because it's kind of good to use like some of the colors around the whole entire item. And I put a very thin drop of burnt sienna garage kit colors mixed with it, and I sort of took the yellow out of this tail. So once I did that, the bones actually turned a little bit like reddish, so I had to go back and do the bones again. But now the tail is kind of like good against the skin tone where I wanted it to be. Before it was just way too yellow, and I didn't like the way that yellow was going against the skin. And then once you put the black on there, it would look very, very off. And then underneath of it, again, what I did is I kind of hit a little bit of the highlight underneath the tail as well. So right now we're looking pretty good. So I'm going to let this cure up for the night. I'm going to put it aside. I don't even want to look at it. I've been at it all day long now. I just kind of want to come back tomorrow with fresh eyes, see what's going on, if I need to change anything. And then we have Dupli-Color Gloss top coat for cars. But I like to use this to really seal the skin, really make it strong and durable. And then once that kind of dries up and cures, I can flatten it down and go from there. So it's kind of like adding a lot of layers onto the item, but I want to really protect it though, because I don't want it to be, be able to be scratched and stuff. I want to make it as strong as I can. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And hopefully once we get this skin sealed up, we could kind of start working on the outfit. Now what I might do though is before I seal up the skin tomorrow, you might just see the teeth and eyes be all whited out and everything, and maybe I'll do some of the facial features on the skin too before I actually seal it. Sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's not, but I might do that first. It all depends on what kind of mood I'm in and how I want to go about it tomorrow. So we'll see how things look tomorrow and go from there. Okay, so I woke up this morning and I was ready to do my clear coat on her and then dull it down and then probably do all the black trim today around the outfit. But sadly, it's raining like crazy on and off all morning. There's a lot of moisture outside. It's very muggy, so it's not a good idea to use any type of car paint or can paint outside in this type of weather, because you'll get cloudiness, or you might get cracking, or depending on whatever's going on, you just run into issues. Now, you might say, why don't you just do it in the airbrush booth here? The problem is I don't like using any type of car paints or primers out of a can inside the house, even in this airbrush booth, because the fumes just linger throughout the house and I just hate it. Even if you were to spray this item down with clear coat outside on a nice sunny day, and that's nice and cool, you let it dry for like 2 hours, and if you bring it into the studio, you still get that fume off the item. It takes like a good 24 hours for it like to kind of go away. So normally what I would do is I would spray her down, let her sit in the garage for about an hour on a nice day, and then I would bring her in here, and then I'll turn the airbrush booth on and spray it out and let it cure up inside the studio for a bit, and then I would dull it down. But I don't want to push my luck with this item, and that's just kind of a tip for anybody that might be using car paints on items, and if you're running into issues, that might be the issue. You gotta do it on nice cool days. It can't be super hot, it can't be super cold, and you can't have a lot of moisture out there with like rain. So you gotta find those nice perfect days if you can. So that being said, I figured, you know what, maybe it's a good time to just do the facial features now, get them over and done with in the morning, so this way when I do the clear coat, it seals that up as well, because there is some powder with some eye makeup. So I figured let's just get it out of the way when I'm ready to do it in like a day or two anyway. So what I did is I gave her some purplish eyeshadow because I want to make her look sinister looking. I gave her really thick black eyelashes. Her eyebrows are like a dark brown because I didn't want them to really pop out too much on her. And then the lips are a deep black red lipstick with some like dark deep red on the bottom lip to make it pop a little bit more. Now, she will have eye decals at the very end. The reason why I'm not doing them now is because if I put them in now, the Dupli-Color, when I'm ready to do my seal, will react to the eye decals and bubble them and warp them and destroy them. The other thing too is if I didn't do that and I was going to mask off the face to do the hair anyway, sometimes silly putty can pull your eye decals off, so it's not a good idea to do them until the very end. So that's kind of what I like to do. Plus, when I do the eye decals, I like to put like the Tamiya clear gloss paint over the eye to kind of like give it like a candy shell, so it's easier to maneuver the eyes a little bit better too. So what we're going to do is we're going to close out this video now because that's pretty much what we got done so far. the next video, by the time we come back, what I'll do is I'll probably have her all sealed up. I'll have the skin tone dulled down, and then I'll probably have all the black trim around the outfit done. Now the reason why I do the black trim around the outfit is because if you have silly putty and you go to do your masking, so this is kind of close to the you know, the skin tone on her. If you're doing a character that's different skin tones like blues, reds, or gold skin tones, you know, browns or whatever, it's maybe a little bit easier to do your masking. But what I'll do is I'll do a black paint trim around the item, going around here, all the way around there, around everything. So this way when I put on my silly putty, I actually can see where the line is. Because if you're not careful with it, and you put your silly putty on, and then when you pull this off, you might have gone too far down from your outfit or above the outfit. So you got to kind of be careful with the silly putty, and it's better to do all the trim, and that's just tedious work. So, but this is where we're at so far. Hopefully you guys like the way she's coming out. It's come together pretty well. Maybe by the next video, I'll pretty much finish up the item, because we got to do the outfit, which is going to be latex. It's not going to just be like black paint that's glossy and then we're done. I'm going to do black paint with some gunmetal on it to make it pop a little bit more. We'll use the Dupli-Color clear gloss over, really make it shine like a car, really make it look like a latex shiny outfit. And then what we'll do is we'll focus on the base, and then the very end we'll focus on the hair. And after that, it's just the tedious stuff like doing the fingernails, adding in all the spikes, attaching the tail and shell, and just getting all that little tedious stuff finished up. But that's where we're at. Let me know what you guys think about it so far. She's coming together. And then what we'll do is we'll see you in the next video, and hopefully she'll be all finished up.